Most men in America know how to get angry. We also know how to set ourselves right. In my case, I've been raging for several years now at the abuse of my life by local and state and other international people who think that a man's life is a game show or is some sort of game to play with. The people who sexually assaulted me should go to hell. And they will, in truth, because Jesus Christ, whatever they believe in, whatever deity they are honoring in their brain, isn't someone who says, go out and sexually assault people or rape people in my name to prove anything in this world. But what we know, the history and heritage of law enforcement from the beginning of time when Christ walked the earth, is that they have the legacy of having beaten and strapped Jesus to a cross and literally killed him on that cross. And heaven really quaked. Now, we've had some serious thunderclaps over the last year that have been God's house literally thundering and blundering at America. We are facing COVID, where we're producing ridiculous volumes of money to fund into an illness that the truth is it's no different than any other flu in a way, because we've always been susceptible to disease. American citizens have fought disease, have cancer, and other things that are the typical things that take our life over time or take our lives sadly too early, like in the case of my eldest brother who died at 12. But that's not the point. The point is that cancer ravages all of us when we are not thinking. Now, Louise Hayes wrote a great book, which I'm so thrilled that one of my future, hopefully, colleagues and bosses has just distributed across a network, talking about what a good book it is, because it talks about, and what she talks about is how our emotions impact us in terms of the Lord's house, and how the Lord's house teaches us lessons. My father was a bit of a tyrant, and he spent the last days of his life literally an invalid, where he lost most of his adult daily living capabilities, these ADLs. And that was hard for most of us because he is a physically large man. And there's a lot of places that do not prepare their lavatories in a way that's helpful to people who are dealing with illnesses, but they still have to have family time. They still have to go out into the world. They still have to have remarkable dinners and great opportunities to do things. And I can remember the day that, and I probably told the story before, when we went into a restaurant and my father needed some help. And being the gentleman there, and my mom and my sister were there, I had to take him into the bathroom. And thankfully he was still sort of mobile and he could still walk a little. And we got in there and there was virtually no toilet paper, no paper towels, and he was having one of those rough days. So what I had to do was, because of how I typically dress myself in a business attire, was take off my dress shirt, take off my undershirt, and then use my undershirt, which obviously was going to be donated to something sort of trash can after that, to clean up my father, so that we wouldn't have a problem with him leaving in disparagement. I was always very angry at my mother and my siblings for using tan pants on my dad because he was experiencing incredible incontinence, and most of the Depends out there don't work well. And they don't work well for a very large man who has a full bladder. And that's a shame. But the truth is, we have to take care of our family. And a man who's willing to love you for the rest of your life will take care of you to the end of your days. He's not going to willingly put you off at some institution if something goes wrong, if you get sick, or if you become an invalid of some kind. He will do his best, but he will also hire the right people to care for you. And one of my jobs early on was to kind of supervise and chaperone the women of my father's care when they were still in sort of an independent living, and we brought in some people so they could finish out their contract of living at that place off Keystone and 86th Street. But the reality was, God would often wake me early and say, go check, and I'd find the caregiver literally asleep on the sofa. Now, she wasn't supposed to do that, but I did have an understanding heart that it's hard to stay awake when you've got nothing to watch on television. It's hard to stay awake when you've had a long day and you've got kids and you've got all these things you have to do for. I get that. But the truth is, she was legally liable for my father's situation. And even if he fell, which he did quite a lot with his illness, and we got him a crash helmet for it, she would have to still call someone like an ambulance to get him up because of the legalities and legalities of her job. Isn't that amazing?